We're going to have some fun now. We're going to talk about Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson has been one of my favorite players in the NBA to watch, probably for the last month, because they've really embraced this point Zion ideal where they're getting super creative. I want to shout out Willie Green. I think Willie Green has taken a lot of, this is something that I've talked about on the show for years upon years, basically since Stan Van Gundy was there. And you got super creative, like playing Zion at point, running these like super fun ghost actions when JJ Redick was there, and then spacing out, to the top of the key, spacing out like empty side actions where JJ would like be at the wing and Zion would get downhill and do stuff. But I also kind of want to talk about like some of the growth Zion is showing, because I did a video on Zion Williamson earlier this year, and that was like a weird Christopher Walken like emphasis on those words, Zion Williamson. That was bad, but Zion Williamson this year has shown growth in ways that we haven't seen before. I've seen some people say that like the athleticism is back. I don't really completely agree with that. I think it looks better from like the point where I did the video, I think in like November or early December or so, where I thought like the bounce was like not there at all. And like, it was not quite where he needed it to be. It's back insofar as like it's at a functional level for where he needs it to his game. But what I love about watching Zion now is I think that the patience just looks so much better in terms of how he like operates on the ball and is able to create and get his teammates involved. He looks very comfortable and poised running the show of an offense now. He's never going to be some like elite level passer, but he's been pretty damn good running their show. And we have some clips. We're going to talk about some clips both on offense and on defense for Zion that kind of showcase where he's at. And I don't want to shortchange the defense. I think the defense has been a little bit better recently. Where are you at on this Zion situation?
No, I love that this is what they're doing with him. I have, early in the year, I watched the game and I was like, he's a monster. He is amazing. All the things everybody knows about him. But I just didn't really love the way they were using him. And I had some questions about building a team around him and that archetype of player. And it was funny because even in these notes, I said, man, I really love this Zion and Valanciunas pick and roll. Like, it's just so tough to play against, to prepare for. I like some of his passing and all of that. And then we get to a couple months later and they've kind of dove right into the reason I like it is I think it fits their team roster really well, Sam. I've been saying for a while, I like CJ McCollum playing off the ball, like as a spot up player. And if you just go through the roster, Brandon Ingram, like that's not as much, right? Like that's a whole conversation. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. CJ's 43% from 3 on 8 attempts this year. Murphy, 36% on 7.5. Herb, who we got some hate for not putting in our top 10 list last episode, 43% on 3.5 attempts. Jordan Hawkins, we know, even if Matt Ryan's on the floor. Jose Alvarado, 36%. Najee Marsh. So my point being, you have all of these guys who can play off the ball, knock down, catch, and shoot, and who maybe their strength, other than BI, isn't creating and running the offense through them. And then Valanciunas in the post. I'm like, it kind of makes more sense this way than like CJ trying to run pick and roll with Valanciunas. And then, yeah, Zion in the dunker spot is cool, but I would rather just put the ball in his hands and make the defense figure that crap out. Like, have fun defending that stuff with 3 shooters spacing the floor.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Or like defending with, running these crazy 4-5 ball screens with Zion and Jonas, like you're kind of saying, or running, 4-1 screens with Zion and CJ, like 4-2 screens with Zion and like Trey Murphy, like sort of kind of playing the 2 even a little bit when Brandon's at the 3. It just gives you a lot more room for creativity offensively, I think, which is really important for what the Pelicans, I think, need in order to derive the best offense for them. So in his last 30 games, Zion Williamson's averaging 22.6 points, 5.5 rebounds, 5.2 assists per game, shooting 57.7% from the field. In his last 18, 23.7 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 5.8 assists. Since the start of February, when the point guard switch like really happened, I think it was like first week of February or so when I really started to like notice it as a thing. 23.9 points, 5.6 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 53.4% from the field, getting to the line 7 times per game, making 75% of his free throws. I think that this is just the way that they have to operate. And I think that more than anything, it's the best way to make the Zion Brandon Ingram combo work. I think it's very difficult to have two guys that are questionable shooters on the wing playing, you know, the 3 and the 4 when they're both like off ball scorers in some way, shape, or form. Realistically, you need one of those two guys constantly on the ball. And for me, like Zion's just a better player than Brandon. Apologies to Brandon Ingram. I think people know I've really enjoyed Brandon for a long, long time. And I don't mean that negatively. It's just that when Zion's at his best, it's a totally different ball game. And for me, what I've enjoyed, again, kind of seeing most is the patience that he's played with. I kind of mentioned that at the top here, and I want to talk about that as we dive into some clips here. What I see here when I watch the Pelicans is you're going to see this is one of those really fun 4-1 ball screen actions, right? Where CJ McCollum is coming up and setting a screen. Zion, you know, look at the way Naz Reid plays this, right? Like Naz almost like tries to get in between CJ and Zion here and gives up Zion's left hand. And like, that's just like a total no, right? Like that is the worst way to defend Zion. But look at this.
So I just, the thing behind this, Sam, is when does Naz Reid have to do this? Like, when is Naz Reid practicing and how many games is he guarding? He's guarding, for those not watching on YouTube, he's guarding Zion 40 feet from the basket and having to guard a ball screen that you can't switch because it's CJ McCollum setting the screen. And so it puts him in a tough spot that he's not familiar with.
As the ball screen ball handler defender, not the big defender.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I should have clarified. Yeah.
No, you did a better job than I did. Okay. So, but it gives up Zion's left hand 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? Even last year. Zion's just going to try and get downhill here, I think.
Yeah,
even
I
with
agree.
Karl Towns and Kyle Anderson, I believe that is, there waiting. He's just going to try and get downhill and go. But look at how he takes that little pound dribble right at the top of the key there. He stops, he pauses, and he looks up. He tries to see what's going on. He sees that he's got this 1-on-2 on the backside here because Kyle Anderson has stepped up to cut off his drive. And he's going to have this man wide open here in the corner, and he's going to shoot it over to the corner, drills the 3. It's the patience. It's this little pound dribble right here where he stops instead of going all the way to the rim. That is real, genuine growth from Zion Williamson as a player. Zion's always been a good like passer in terms of seeing the court and everything. It's that willingness to play patiently and allow his game to really, really develop and allow the defense to make its move on him and then react to what the defense does to him. He doesn't always have to be the dominant at the rim brick shithouse scorer. He can just go and make plays. Like, he's skilled enough to do that.
Who's in the dunker? Is that Dyson?
I'm assuming that's Dyson pre-injury. Yeah.
So here's the thing. The reason I ask is this isn't even the best possible lineup you could have around him. I mean, it is Alvarado, who I really like. Jose Alvarado's game. One, it's just absolutely fun to watch. But you have Dyson Daniels in the short corner. I believe that's Larry Nance kind of playing in like the mid-range on what turns into the strong side as he comes down. Like, point being, it's not even as spaced as what it could be depending on who you have on the floor, because you have Nance and Daniels out there, and he still creates a pretty, not wide open, but very quality corner catch and shoot 3 for a very good catch and shoot player in Jose Alvarado. Like, it's just, it's awesome.
100%. I think that's the biggest place where I've seen growth in Zion offensively. Again, I don't think that the burst or like the bounce or anything like that is really back. Like, when I watch him, like I still think that you look at that second year, you look at Duke. I mean, my God, like he was a different guy, but it's clear that he's getting in better condition. It's clear that he's getting in better shape, and things are starting to get better. He's starting to grow and mature. and figure out how to use his skill level and use his inherent basketball IQ, which I think has always been really underrated. Zion hasn't just been this like brick wall and like enormous driving force. He's always been very skilled as a basketball player and is able to get to his spots with that skill and with that handle and with the power, obviously, but using the kind of influx of all of those skills together, the intersection of all of those skills at once to be able to get to where he wants. Now we're starting to see it more in a way that allows him to impact winning across the board.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead. I love the growth.
I love the growth, but I also want to talk about the defense because
Sure.
this is where we start getting into like the impacting winning piece of it for Zion. And I think we've seen some real genuine growth this year defensively from Zion. It's the activity and the IQ and the willingness to like have his brain switched on and not just like shut off on defense to me, right? So this play here, what you're going to see, same game, right? Zion is in that weak side corner in what is turning into an empty side action between Jaden McDaniels. No, it's not Jaden McDaniels. Who is that? And Anthony Edwards. That's Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
So it's essentially like a 2-1 ball screen with the personnel that they have out there.
Yep.
Into an empty side where CJ McCollum is going to be responsible for slowing down the freight train that is Anthony Edwards by himself on the empty side of a court. What I love here is that Zion is like already looking. He's already seeing, oh shit, I need to be available here. And then you just see him completely erase the shot, right? I really think that a couple years ago, maybe even last year again, especially given that he wasn't in like great peak physical form, he kind of lets this go, I think. I don't think he makes this weak side rotation a year ago.
Well, and
he's
for
always
the
been somebody that's like willing to go and do it, but like if he can go get the block. But a lot of the time there's been like a little bit of laziness there. Go ahead, Bryce.
I was just saying he's guarding Naz Reid for the listeners, and or if anybody watch, like, and so he has every excuse to just say, hey, I'm just gonna stay over here on Naz, and I'll be late because I'm guarding a guy that can shoot the ball. And I mean, the Timberwolves have the floor space pretty well. They have Cat at the top of the key. Ideally the Pelicans would rotate off Jaden McDaniels on the wing. BI would rotate to Reid if Ant did make a pass. But Zion could just say, hey, I got Naz Reid over here. I'm just going to stay home. But, I mean, this is an incredible block on a big-time athlete in Anthony Edwards.
100%. These are the kind of plays that change the way that he impacts winning. And with Zion, it's always been about, like, can he up his game not just as a scorer around the basket, but in multiple different ways to be able to help his team win basketball games. This is the second one, right? So check out this one where it's going to be against the Clippers recently. I think this one might be like around the turn of January, February, where he is defending kind of in, pseudo transition here as they bring the ball up the court. Terrence Mann. And the Clippers are sort of kind of running like a double drag where it's almost like a ghost drag from, James Harden, who's going to come through the play. And then the real screen is going to be Terrence Mann coming up. They just decide to switch this. And I just love the activity and energy again. Like he comes, he switches it, he handles it, he contains Norman Powell as a driver, goes up, blocks the shot, goes out of bounds. But a good defensive play again, where he's really moving his feet, right? Again, Zion like had this tendency over the last couple of years to kind of get stuck in the mud a little bit, right? And not be able to defend in space as well as you want him to. And there are still flaws. We'll talk about one of them in a second here. But I love the fact that he's moving his feet better more than anything and being that active, energetic guy that they need.
Well, the more I've really dove into watching NBA games, watching NBA draft prospects, how you can be successful on the defensive end, just giving that second effort, Sam, NBA players are too good offensively. The rules are too in their favor. There's too much spacing. Guys aren't just going to stay in front all game long. You are going to get beat. You are going to get hung up on a ball screen. Are you willing to give the second effort? Will you continue to move your feet, stay at least on his hip? And then what can you do to be a deterrent when you get there? For some guys, that's incredible hand activity and placement, right? Like they're just great. When the offensive player exposes the ball, they attack it. For some guys like Zion, he's going to put his body on Norman Powell, and then he's still explosive enough and quick enough off the floor to block the shot. I think that's a huge part of defense. Just don't give up on the play. Continue to go with it, and you're going to be able to make an impact in a lot of situations.
And the other thing I'm so glad you brought up there are the hands, right? Zion is definitely a guy that from time to time can have low hands and not necessarily have active hands. Look at his hands here, right? The hands are out. He's trying to cut off different angles. He's trying to make life just a little bit harder. He's got his hands out still. He's low with his hands right next to the ball there. Look at his left hand right next to the ball there, and Norman Powell's right hand, trying to disrupt, trying to make sure that Norman Powell knows he's there. It's just really good. Like these are the steps that Zion needs to make to be able to be that kind of true number one option at some point. He doesn't have to be the best defensive player in the world. He just can't be a sieve at the end of the day. And look, again, we're going to talk about some issues, in terms of where he needs to grow with a clip that Nekias Duncan pulled. And I think it was really, really good of Nekias to point this out, because this has always been my number one concern with Zion as a defender is what does he look like on closeouts here, right? So you're going to watch the Heat come down the court. Zion right now, weak side corner of the action over there, guarding Jaime Jaquez. They throw the ball into the post to, I believe that is Bam Adebayo. They send a help man, not really like a double, but kind of a soft double, I would say. Caleb Martin here is kind of lurking in the dunker spot. So because who is that for the Pelicans? Is that Najee Marshall, I believe, probably
playing
guarding
inside the circle.
Yeah, comes over for the soft double. Caleb kind of goes into that dunker spot area. It does leave Zion like in a 1.5-on-1 situation, because Najee's kind of responsible here for Caleb. But now Najee is recovered. Bam Adebayo is here. Pretty locked up, I would say, right?
Agreed. Yeah, I would agree.
He's picked the ball up. Like, you don't need to be this tight into the paint, in my opinion, if you're Zion here. You probably should just be tighter onto Jaime Jaquez at the end of the day. I think that you can actually see the moment where his brain kind of falls asleep if you look real close. Like you see him put his hands down, and he's right there.
Look at his right foot. Like he was in really good squared up position, and now his right foot has taken a step back. He can't explode out of this and close out right now.
Right. So as soon as Bam makes this pass here, it's just a flyby. It's just like a total flyby for Jaquez. And then they get Bam for this little free throw line floater. My God, my brain.
He just lost track of where Jaime was. He didn't even close out nearly to the right spot.
Yeah, 100%. And these are just the things that will have to come with him, right? Like he's going to have to showcase the ability to completely lock in. Even when a guy picks up the ball here, he needs to be tighter to Jaime there. There are still little things he's going to have to improve. I would say closeouts are the number one thing, just truthfully. When I watch Zion Williamson play, I'm like, you need to be closer to your man. You need to be able to close out heavily. I think that part of what his thing is, for so long, he relied on that athleticism that was so outlier athleticism to be able to get to his spots where he's like, oh yeah, I can just close out and block this shot, right? You can't really do that in the NBA because guys are too skilled. Like Jaime can put the ball on the ground, and then B, he can't really get there anymore. And he's always been jumpy on his closeouts too, I think, more than anything. It's just like a tendency. Like he's always been, look at him jump here, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a leap. You can't do that in the NBA. You got to step out with your closeouts in the NBA. Look, Zion's defense has been way better. I don't think that this is the best Zion has ever played, I would still go that second year. Like, if you remember his second year, he was seriously just like obliterating worlds
I have
by the end of that season.
You have the number. 27, 7, almost 4 assists, 2.7 turnovers on 61% from the field, getting to the free throw line almost 9 times a game
Yeah, like
in 61 games.
if you look through the like stretch in the middle of the season there, like his 37 game stretch from February to May in that 2021 weird, slightly altered season, he averaged 29 points on 62% from the field.
Yeah.
He was unbelievable that season. I don't think we're quite back to that level of dominance. I hope we get there. I hope that he gets back into better condition and like we really start to see where he's capable of going. I think his ceiling is still immense, and I love the fact that we're seeing more engagement. It seems like he's really taking a lot of the criticism, frankly, to heart. And I love to see that from him. I love to see the way that he's been willing to like mature just as a human, and like he looks like he's in better shape. He looks like he's moving better. I'm just a lot more excited about Zion when I watch Zion now.
It's interesting with Zion because I think because of a lot of the other stuff, like everybody knows the off the course, like we don't need to talk about that. Even just the crazy athleticism and the shoes and all of that. Like I think it has always gotten lost. And like what you said earlier, how talented and skilled this guy is. And I'm glad you wanted to talk about him because, I don't think we've talked about Zion all season long. His team is 5th in the West right now. We talk about how good the West is all the time. His team is 5th. Right now, he's on track to play 70 games, over 30 minutes a night. He's taken this primary initiator role. He's doing things defensively. Like he deserves some flowers and some conversation around the nuance of his game. Not just, oh my gosh, Zion is 200 and how many ever pounds and this crazy athlete. Like, no, he is a skilled basketball player with things that need to grow and improve and other maturities that still need to happen on the court, but real improvement and growth that needed to be highlighted and talked about. Real quick, if you guys are watching on YouTube, go back to the clip, that last one with the Heat. Watch Jaime Jaquez subtly relocate off the ball and what that did in that situation. It's like, it's such a little nuanced thing. As Sam is bringing this up, I know we were crushing Zion for it, and he still should be able to recognize it, but watch Jaime, like watch where he's at as Bam catches the ball. So he's in the corner to start. Now Bam starts to drive across the middle of the lane. So he moves up the lane, and then watch right there. He just moves, and that's why Zion doesn't know where he's at. And those are the little things that Jaime Jaquez, even as a rookie, is good at. And one of those things I'm always looking for with like NBA draft, like off the ball players, those little nuanced movements off the ball that keep floor spacing, create shot attempts, create driving opportunities on closeouts. Those are things off ball players have to be really good at. And I just thought that was a really good example as, the other side of the equation.
I agree. Look, the Pelicans need to make something of a run this year. I think like they need to, at least be like competitive in a playoff series at the end of the day. They